Propaganda played a huge role in both world wars. It allowed governments to control public opinion to their preference. It became a crucial weapon for both sides of the war. In some countries, it was used to encourage people to go to the war. In others, it was used to discourage the thought. Especially in World War II, propaganda can come in any way. It could be a poster, a message or ad in the radio, or even a cartoon. In this essay, I'm going to focus on USA's propaganda in World War II. It played a huge part of the war in the United States among its citizens, as it led them all to one thought: win the war. It was an overall thought that just kept growing thanks to propaganda. I believe that the way the United States used propaganda was amazing. It made people respond incredibly well to the war, to the point where every US citizen was striving to win the war. The people that were opposing to that idea were a minority. Undoubtedly, propaganda was helpful to the government because it led to that thought of victory and hope, instead of having a whole country angry and protesting to quit the war. The support was so overwhelming that the number of people enlisting to go to the war skyrocketed. And what better way to show a positive response from society than the support for the army? Clearly, everyone was set to help in anything they could, even to the point of risking their own lives for their country. Let's not forget that the United States were still recovering from an economic crisis. You would think that US citizens would hate the idea of a war. Instead, after seeing how the government portrayed the idea of why going to the war was the best option through propaganda, everyone agreed with it. It was only through propaganda that US citizens were able to think the same way as the government. So yes, propaganda did play a huge role. Almost every man was sent to the war, therefore leaving many vacant jobs. To solve this problem, the government used the aid of propaganda once again to encourage women to fill these jobs. A series of propaganda posters that shared the idea that women can do the same jobs as any man started to come out. Rosa Riveter, perhaps the most famous propaganda figure, shared this message to encourage women to fill the jobs of men gone to war. It worked incredibly well as the number of women in the workforce increased dramatically. This showed once again that the best option to persuade people was through propaganda, which would become one of the most profitable businesses during World War II. We've seen different ways in which people tried to help in time of war, but none of those were as helpful to the government as the income that propaganda brought. As I said earlier in this essay, there are many ways in which propaganda can come to life. It could be a poster, a movie, a radio show, a cartoon, or a newsreel. Obviously, people needed to pay to own or watch all these things listed above. They sure did pay for many of these things I just mentioned, as in the span of around 4 years, more than $185 billion were raised by American citizens. This is a huge amount of money, and is also my ultimate evidence that supports my idea that society responded in the best way possible to the war. And yeah, you could say that what I'm saying is nonsense. You could say that a piece of paper or a movie can't control your thoughts or feelings. I don't blame him from thinking that way, because I did too until a few days ago. It wasn't until I started to actually know a little bit about the topic that I knew I was wrong. Propaganda is the best weapon you can use, even nowadays. It may sound strange or even impossible, but what you see as a piece of paper actually contains a message. Either you agree with it or not. I have proven in this same essay how propaganda has initiated movements that would have been otherwise impossible if not for this media. As I've said many times, propaganda was perhaps the most lethal weapon that could be used in World War II. It allowed governments to control their country's opinion at their will. I think that no one did it better than the United States. We just have to review the presented evidence to know why I believe this way. To start, let's go back a few years before the United States got into World War II. The US was facing its worst economic crisis ever. By the time Pearl Harbor was attacked, the country was still recovering from those past years. Being in that situation, the last thing you would want is getting in a war. You would think that the citizens in your country would be fuming with the news. They would probably have if it wasn't for the massive effort the government put into propaganda. Thanks to this, American citizens were as helpful as they could have ever been. The number of people enlisting to the war, as well as the number of women in the workforce, increased radically. Besides, you can be confident to say that propaganda making was the most profitable business during that time. And to finish, I am glad to have chosen this topic for my essay. It has provided me with knowledge and new points of view regarding to wars and how they can be controlled or perceived. After spending many hours gathering information for this particular essay, I've realized how important it is for the new generations to know about things like this. There's no need for me to say that we live in a time where many horrible things are happening worldwide, and that the thought of a third world war doesn't seem too crazy nor too far away. We should educate our people so that when the time comes, we can all be prepared. At the same time, seeing how governments are able to control how we think is scary, and it's something that can happen at any moment without you even realizing. This not only works for war type of things, but almost everything. The prime example I can give to you right now are the presidential elections, in which you are persuaded to choose the best candidate. In conclusion, my firm belief that propaganda was crucial to have almost all society agree with the idea of going to the war was hopefully well portrayed and was able to make you think at least for a second or two.